let's include the employees as well, because they are also, the brand ambassadors in a way for a company. So until and unless they share their own experiences to the outside world, we won't be able to generate that kind of interest that we want to. And to be a brand ambassador, everyone has to be a storyteller. And storytelling doesn't come naturally to everyone.
Welcome to the All in Recruitment podcast by Manatal, where we explore best practices, learnings, and trends with leaders in the recruitment space. If you like our content, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify to stay tuned for our weekly episodes. I'm your host, Lydia, and this week we have Amresh Yadav of Johnson Controls. Hi, Amresh. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Lydia. It's my pleasure to be here.
So you're in a very interesting space, isn't it? A very in-demand space, employer branding. So tell us about your background so far, Amresh. What keeps you in this dynamic intersection of many things, talent, brand, content?
That's a great question, Lydia. Let me tell you my story, how it all began. So I started my career with L&T. That was my first company, and I was a part of the TA team. So my responsibilities were pretty much into recruitment, the headhunting or campus recruitment. So by doing campus recruitments, that was the first time I recognized the importance of employer branding, and I wanted to make a career into it. So when I worked there for about 3 years, I wanted to get into marketing and branding because I had acquired the experience of TA and HR, but I was not very, adept with the skills of marketing and branding. So I decided to do my master's in media and advertising from the University of Leicester. I was there for about two years, and then I joined this company, Santa Fe Location, which is my second company. And you would be a bit surprised to know that here I was a part of the marketing team. So I was supporting my TA and other functions. The company was, in fact, it had started doing employer branding for the first time. So I was collaborating with the HR leaders over there, the business leaders, and the TA function over there. And at Santa Fe Relocation, I was the part of this marketing team supporting the employer branding and the recruitment marketing projects. And here my interest developed into making a career entirely into this domain. So till then, it was earlier I was a part of the HR team. Here I was a part of the marketing team. So after 4 years over here, I was into different functions as well: the marketing and sales, employer branding. For some time, I was also doing HR. So it was a multiple, and that employer branding is a cross-functional role. So I was a bit of myself, myself everywhere. Yeah. So after 4 years over there, I joined this company, my current company, Johnson Controls, and here I'm leading the entire function for India, Pacific, and Northeast Asia, basically a few countries like Japan and Korea, because we don't have much of LinkedIn presence over there in those countries, and the ecosystem is quite different. So my major focus is in India and Pacific. These are my major markets. Talking about storytelling, see, it's a very interesting combination, storytelling, a strategy, and then data insights. So it's a good blend of all these three things, and then you develop your employer branding strategy, which aligns with the business goals. So this is something which is very interesting for me, and then it keeps me going every day.
Yeah, so you talked about realizing the importance of employer branding when you were doing campus recruiting. Was that right? So,
yes.
In what instance did you realize? Was it a lack of presence somewhere, or did you have to talk about it over and over again? What was the challenge there that you felt needed to be fixed?
So I would love to tell you that while my time in L&T, there was a scholarship called Build India Scholarship, and it was a flagship program. It was open for the internal employees. It was open for the external employees as well. But I didn't see so much of participation in that particular program. And my manager told me that this year we have to get so many participations. So that was the time I realized that despite having so many good programs within the company, somehow it is not being communicated to the external audience. At some instances, I could say with the internal employees as well. So it was not communicated well in both the mediums. Right. So see, employer branding was very new concept back then as well. I didn't know about it, that what is talent branding, what is employer branding, but I did realize that there is a need for marketing into the HR function. And that is how I discovered about employer branding. And let me tell you, it was back in 2012. Um, Employer branding in India picked up only after COVID. You
Hmm.
know, I started seeing a lot of companies hiring for employer branding, but that is how my interest has started into it. I didn't know that where I'm going to uh, reach the end line with that interest, but then that is how my interest got started.
Yeah, whether it's before COVID or even after, employer branding has always been a space. It just probably took on different names.
Yeah.
There just different things that we call that space, right? So, in terms of employer branding and your focus on this particular area, what are some key areas that you're looking at this year? What are some key areas that you have looked at?
So this year, let me tell you that my focus is more on humanizing our employer brand. So when I say humanizing our employer brand, my focus is equipping our recruiters to be brand advocates, because see, recruiters are the first point of contact for any candidate. And until and unless they are the marketeers, we cannot achieve our goals. So a few days back, I was listening to one podcast, and one of the experts was talking about that, let's consider employer branding as dating. What good impression you can make on a candidate in the first meeting, how charming you are, as an employer. So what I have done at JCI is, and it's a global campaign. My work is more of adapting it locally into this APAC region. So we have this digital library where the recruiters have all the marketing collaterals. So basically, I call it recruitment marketing collaterals.
Mm.
And they make use of it while posting something on social media, sharing their own experiences, and reaching out to the potential candidates. So that is one aspect of it. The different aspects. Second aspect, I would say, not just let it confine to the recruiters. Let's include the employees as well, because they are also the brand ambassadors in a way for a company.
Mm.
So until and unless they share their own experiences to the outside world, we won't be able to generate that kind of interest that we want to. And to be a brand ambassador, everyone has to be a storyteller, and storytelling doesn't come naturally to everyone.
Mm.
So there are certain tools, like employee advocacy tools, but what I personally felt is, when so many employees post some things, the same contents again and again, it becomes very monotonous and very repetitive. And
Mm.
that is where the coaching is very important for those employees. Like, what kind of stories they can include in their postings, what kind of genuine employee experience they can portray on their accounts. So this is one of the major focus areas for me. Second important thing is when I talk about recruitment marketing, which is very important part of employer branding altogether. So for recruitment marketing, globally, we are very much interested in using this, programmatic advertising tools, programmatic advertising tools, where we want to use different channels to advertise our
Mm.
jobs on different platforms all over the internet. That is one aspect to it. And there are different AI assistants. So on my career side, if you go,
Indeed,
Johnson.
yeah. I was just going to bring that up. It's Emma, isn't it? On Johnson
Yes.
Controls, yes.
So in fact, you don't have to fill out the whole form, because it is very boring for a candidate to just fill up all the fields in a job form. But if you go to our career site, you can chat with Emma, and Emma will be asking you questions step by step, like, what is your name? What is your experience? What was your university? What was your first company? So you'll feel like you're chatting to a real person. And while doing that, you will have completed your complete form. So
Hmm.
that is how it works. And
Right.
in between, if you would like to know more about the company culture, for example, you are at the fourth step where you talked about the, education qualifications, but suddenly you thought about, okay, let me ask about what is the status of diversity and inclusion in the company. So Emma will take a pause. Emma is going to reply you, and then she will get back to the completion of that form.
So,
So that is
so
how it works.
Amresh, in terms of comparing that, having an AI assistant like Emma, a recruiting assistant, I think it's called, a
Yeah.
recruiting an AI avatar, so to speak, speaking to a candidate who's interested to know about the company versus having a real person talk to them or filling out a form, as you said, what might be the difference in terms of the impact that you've observed so far?
So we have seen, the volume of applications have definitely increased per job posting because so we call it the bounce rate. The bounce rate has increased. So earlier there used to be 4 or 5 pages to fill up the form, and mostly candidates would get bored after 2 or 3 pages. But here we don't see with the bounce rate has decreased definitely. This is one of the major things. And
So, so
yeah,
there is
and
no.
I would also like to tell you the page visits. So
Mm.
suppose if someone visited our career site but wants to know more about our products and services. So through Emma, they have been able to visit those pages as well. So we have been able to increase the page visits as well.
Right. And this goes back to the talent team then. So Emma sits under the employee branding team, or does it go under recruiting? How does it work?
So it comes under TA.
Right.
So yeah, our TA operations owns it.
So in terms of what Emma, when I experienced Emma earlier or tried her out a little bit, she asked me to let her know what kind of information I would need about the culture, etc. So that kind of content, does that come from the employer branding side or does it come from the TA team?
So, well, okay. So, I think you're talking about the content that Emma is able to,
Yes,
show
yes.
to the
Does that fall
candidates,
under
right?
employer branding?
Yeah. So I think it's a teamwork, and
Mm,
both our marketing, communications, TA, or every NHR, all of
mm.
teams are involved, and we have certain set of contents that is with Emma. So Emma like decides like at what point in time what she has to show. Yeah.
Interesting. So in terms of defining employer branding or, identifying where it really sits, so in your opinion, in your view or your experience, where do you think employer branding sits within an organization? It can sometimes be a function on its own, or it may sit within the HR function. So what is your take on that?
See, employer branding is essentially being able to communicate your culture, your EVP, your employee experience to the potential candidates, right? So that we could become the employer of choice, and how these things differentiates us from our competitors. And the question is, which department does it well? Whether it's HR, it's TA, or marketing. I think it's not that employer branding didn't exist, before. It did exist in the early 90s as well, in 2000s as well. But it, I think all the initiatives were not taken under one umbrella. Now what we have done is we have, brought everything that relates to employer branding under this one umbrella and called it employer branding. Normally, what I have seen is employer branding is nested under TA, and that is the case is same with us as well. At times, I have seen it fall under HR as well, and at times with marketing as well. But in my opinion, if you ask me,
Mhm.
employer branding should be an independent function, because it is in itself a cross-functional role. It's not that if it is a different function that you won't be working very closely with marketing, HR, and TA, you would still be working with that. But then I think um, separating it from those departments will give it more power, more, it will make it more independent. Yeah.
Mm. And in terms of managing negative perceptions or negative feedback that comes through different channels online, or even, if you've got so many ways to access candidate experience, right? And the way in which people give reviews to a company is not unlike how people give reviews to a restaurant, for instance, or some service sector, right? So what are some strategies or some ways that you use to manage this kind of negative perception?
Okay, so let's call out elephant in the room. I
Mm.
mean, this is one area where we are very much concerned about. I think every employer. So here at JCI, we take this opportunity of negative reviews to improve ourselves. And I think it's very important as an employer to be transparent So whether it's the Glassdoor reviews, Indeed reviews, Ambition Box reviews, which are the external platforms,
Mm,
or the reviews coming through our internal surveys, we take this opportunity to make the employees feel that we are listening to them. And not just that, we are improving. And also we make sure that we get back to the employees with the communication, like what we have improved.
mm,
So a very popular campaign was being run by our HR team was "You asked and we delivered."
mm,
So and all those feedback were taken very seriously. I would say very sincerely by the HR team, and they worked upon it as a company. And then we communicated back to the employees.
mm.
You asked and we delivered. So I think it's very important for any organization that they should have a two-way communication. We have so many meetings, we have so many town halls, but let's give employees also a chance, to share their feedback.
So going back to these little points of data that you get, feedback, whether it's internal tools that you use, all the different points of data. I mean, what might be some ways for a specialist in employer branding? What might be some ways for them to be able to analyze this data and also effectively storytell that data to their talent teams or their marketing teams or even branding or even senior management?
Yeah. So, well, Lydia, I would say that, um, ROI in employer branding is very important, and it can be looked at in two different ways. One is qualitative and second is quantitative. So when you talk about the conversions, the page visits or the conversions bounce rate, we have a data for that. But there are certain aspect where, so basically what we're trying to do over here is we are trying to change the perception of, potential candidates and the employees. But how do you measure that? So for that, we have different feedback forms, and we calculate the NPS scores, Net Promoter
Mm,
Score. So now, when as a recruiter or as an employer branding specialist, we have the data, but how do we present it to our internal stakeholders and external stakeholders? So for this, I think it's very important to be a good storyteller. So we convert this data into a proper storytelling, like how the project initiated, what was the purpose behind it, where we have reached now, what is our goal, and we started through a journey from start to end, and that
mm,
is how we communicate to our internal stakeholders. I think externally it becomes very important to pick up the certain data points. Like for an example, did this Great Place to Work certification last year, uh, and about 78%. Just give you an example, 78% of the employees said that it's a great place to work, or 73% of the employees feel that they are valued, they are listened by their managers. So we keep picking up this data and utilizing it during our employer branding and recruitment marketing efforts. So this is how we do it.
so employer branding and the data that comes out of employer branding is not always, I would imagine it's not always a straight road upwards. It is always this way and that way. And you've got different seasons to your
Mhm.
employer brand, right? So in terms of making sure that you deliver those figures or be on top of be on top of the sentiments that come out. A lot of employer brand is about sentiments, internal and also external. So how do you effectively keep tabs on that? And how frequently do you need to review the way in which your employer brand is going?
I think, see, we do track it weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis. We have
Mm,
QBR meetings, but see, if you want to know how the perception of the employees have improved, or your ex-employees, current employees, or the candidates, I think the review sites, I would also call it reputation sites, Glassdoor reviews, Indeed reviews, are a great reflector of that. There are certain other applications like Talent Neuron and Talent Insights by LinkedIn, where you can actually see that what keywords are being used by the candidates and the employees. And through that, you can just analyze that whether the
mm,
sentiments of the employees are positive or negative. So
mm,
that's one way of doing it. Secondly, you can just look at the conversion rates and the TTF, time to fill. If you're able to reach out to the right candidates, if you're able to attract the the right kind of candidates, the quality candidates, your time to fill will be reduced. So this is another way of looking at it. This is how in different aspects that we use data to analyze like how our employer branding journey is going on.
Right. And Amresh, you've also been a recruiter, right? In the first part of your career before moving into...
Yeah, I was a coordinator for the recruitment.
A coordinator for recruitment. So do you happen to have a favorite story on recruitment, or any kind of anecdote that you'd like to share on recruitment?
Yeah, I think it also relates to employer branding. That was in my second company where I was supporting my TA function. My second company was about 140 years into the business, and we were doing a walk-in, and we happened to encounter a candidate who was the third generation, applying to the same company. So his grandfather worked for the company for 35 years. His father worked for the company for 35 years, and then he was joining the same company. So this is how you look at the legacy, and we wanted to know why he's joining Santa Fe location. And he had a unique story to tell, that because of the values that you have, it's in my DNA now. So I would say that recruitment and onboarding, I think it's just not, a random practice. I would say it has a lot to do with the sentiments of the people. So that is why in employer branding, we boast, right, that we touch the human emotions. And employer branding is the flag bearer of company culture. So becomes very important that you are actually changing people's experiences, whether they have been your ex-employees, current employees, or your potential candidates.
So for those starting out in employer branding today, or who want to consider a career or future focusing on employer branding, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would say that they have to be passionate about people, about storytelling, about brands. This is one function where you have to be a good marketer. And you also have to be a people's person. Then only you can, achieve success in this particular field. If people are transitioning from other roles into this, then again, I would say get some professional certifications, get your upskilling. But if someone wants to start it from the beginning, they want to choose this as a career. I'm not very sure that many institutes have this as an independent course, but I remember I did study a lot of things under OD, organizational development. It was the part of HR. I bring a lot of application to I leverage a lot of my learnings that I have had in my marketing classes over here. So it's an amalgamation of both the fields you see.
Yeah.
So I would say I would go back to the first statement of mine, that people have to be passionate about people and they have to be good marketeers.
And being good marketers also means being great with data and being able to analyze that data, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amresh, for your time and your insights into employee branding specifically. And I wish you all the best. But for those who are listening in, who might want to pick up a conversation with you, who want to connect with you, where's the best platform?
Thank you so much, Lydia. I really enjoyed this session. People can reach out to me on my LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/AmreshPY. And if someone is a candidate and if you're interested into Johnson Controls, you can just log on to jobs.johnsoncontrols.com and look at our career site. And if you're interested, you can chat with Emma, and then Emma will surely help you out.
Thank you, Amresh. And we've been in conversation with Amresh Yadav of Johnson Controls. Thank you for joining us. And remember to subscribe to stay tuned for more weekly episodes from All in Recruitment.